Hi, my name's Chris Keogh. I'm a white male living in Sydney, Australia. From both those bits of information, you could probably conclude that I'm a privileged individual living in a privileged country. In both these cases, you'd be right. This video is a video about transition, specifically mine into university. Like a lot of transitions that take place throughout our lives simultaneously in many aspects, the seeds of this one actually were planted many, many years ago. I grew up very much in a middle-class family. Dad always worked. And Mum was always, her primary role was really around raising us kids and being a full-time homemaker. I have a younger brother and sister, and basically we always have had a good relationship. However, it's fair to say that my father, when I was growing up, considered me to be lazy. And I think this information was further supported, or this view was further supported by many comments by my teachers saying that Chris could try a lot harder. And I suppose over many years since, kind friends have said maybe I wasn't so much lazy, but maybe just uninspired. I think for me, I grew up in I suppose, as a world that, unbeknownst to me, was quite different, I suppose, than the experience of many other people throughout the world, and quite frankly, many other people within our society here in Australia. Although I did go to public school for many, many years, it was in my last 2 years that my parents actually decided to remove me from school, from public school, and place me in a private school. And it was primarily done because I was experiencing some bullying at a younger age in high school. And as a consequence, I moved into working within a private school environment, which is quite different. And one of the things I suppose I recognised in that time was that the life I was experiencing, the lifestyle I was experiencing, was something that wasn't necessarily a birthright. That in fact, if I didn't pull my socks up, I wouldn't necessarily have the life experience and be able to raise my kids the way my parents raised me. And I suppose one could say now that this was a realisation of the great possibility of downward social mobility, as we know it now in uni. And certainly for me, even though this realisation came as a bit of a shock, I must confess that it still didn't really change behaviour. I continued through and did my HSC and didn't get great marks. But with my dad being an aircraft engineer, he'd moved on into senior management within Qantas. But he'd always drummed into me the importance of getting a trade. And so for me, when I left school, the priority was getting a job and ideally a trade. I applied for an apprenticeship with a company called Repco in the automotive industry. And upon my interview, the human resource manager said, looking at your background, you may in fact wish to apply for a management cadetship. I suppose I've always put this down to, once again, another aspect of privileged private schooling and the branding that can give an education, or at least on a piece of paper. And so I moved into that role and loved it. I really enjoyed it and experienced many different aspects throughout my career, working in different sorts of roles. Life and career basically moved on. I fell in love basically the year after I left school, and we were married a few years later, and next year we'll celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. We eventually had 3 children, and all of which are now teens. Throughout my career, I really have gone from picking orders through to retail sales, through to trade sales, working as a sales rep, then into sales and management roles, and ultimately into being a director for a number of companies. And throughout that time, I've, I suppose, grown in my understanding as to how the corporate sector works, and those things have been enjoyable. One of the things I did notice, though, and I suppose this was really about 5 years ago now, was that the future for many guys in particular, but within middle management and senior management, is very much a case of always moving upwards throughout an organisation, or at least that's the intention and their intention. However, what I noticed in reality was that many corporations, each role that you occupy fulfills not only a significant function for an organisation, but it also fulfills a role of learning for somebody that's basically transitioning onwards and upwards. And really, I suppose, unbeknownst to me, that I'd been very much the benefactor of that system of operation throughout my career, and something that might be harshly known as an upward or out kind of way of operating within the corporate sector. During this time, I'd also experienced 9 years in our own business, so I'd seen how that had worked, and I absolutely loved that. But also made transitions out of the automotive industry and into health and beauty sector and into the interior designer sector. So I had a variety of experiences in different industries. However, as we decided to close our business after 9 years, I went back into a stint within the corporate sector for 3, and I realised during that time that that unless I did something, I could also be trapped in one of these, plateauing situations where I wouldn't necessarily continue to get promotions, but in fact would get maybe grander and grander titles as I moved into less and less significant roles. I didn't really want that to occur. That wasn't a prospect that was very exciting for me. So I really wanted to look at ways in which I could move into a role that, or for a number of roles that our society seemed to value as us as males get older. And I looked at that, and I basically found 3 areas. I found that of teaching was a role that the society appreciated. Society also appreciated what age and experience could bring to the areas of community services, and as well as that ministry. I've been a Christian since I long past remember, and so even though my faith and walk in the with Jesus Christ has been only one that's got stronger and stronger, I certainly don't feel at this stage it's a calling that I'm being brought into at this stage in my life. However, certainly secondary education and the area of community services were of great interest. So what I looked at was getting involved in getting some kind of degree that would give me some sort of piece of paper to validate maybe what I've learned, but also put some of the experiences into context for me. So I looked at Open University and commenced a degree of Bachelor of Business, majoring in Marketing and Economics. And now I'm in my last year, hopefully all going well, for this degree, and I'm still not too sure as to how I'm going to apply it. I certainly consider education a strong one, but to be honest, being in my own small business now for the last 4 years, I suppose I'm a little bit concerned about going into institutions that are rather large and unresponsive. So I've actually put my hand up now to volunteer 1 day a fortnight in a city mission, working with the homeless, street kids and sex workers. Like all transitions, including the one into university, I don't know how this transition is going to work for me either at this stage. However, I'm excited by it, and I certainly look forward to how what I've learned in university, particularly in some of my electives I picked up, how I can apply that to the greater good.